There's a brand new and rather damning article about the New York Giants and their inner workings that recently came out. And on today's special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, I speak with the author of those articles, Tyler Dunne of Go Long. That's coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, and this is a special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. This is one I've been really excited to run for you guys. I promised you that I was looking into doing this interview, and I didn't want to say who it was until I confirmed it, but I can now confirm it. And I'm pleased to welcome in the gentleman that you see on screen with me. His name is Tyler Dunne, former Bleacher Report writer, gentleman that I got to know when I worked for Bleacher Report as a contractor. And now he has his own media outlet. It's called Go Long with Ty Dunne. And Tyler, first off, good morning. Thank you so much for coming on with me.
It's a pleasure to be here, Patricia. Thanks so much for having me, and congrats to you on building up your empire. The Giant fans are very lucky to read you, listen to you, watch you. It's awesome to be here, so thank you.
Always a pleasure to see you, my friend, as well. And for those of you who don't know, Tyler is a wonderful, gifted long-form writer. Thus the name Go Long with Ty Dunne. And he wrote recently a very, very detailed and revealing two-part series. I believe it's two parts, right, Ty? On the New York Giants, just kind of breaking down what has gone wrong with the franchise. Now, those of you who have followed me, you know I have touched upon some of the things. Tyler was able to go into a lot more detail, and we're going to ask him a few questions about that without giving it away, because I highly recommend that if you can, check out the site. It's well worth the subscription, not just for that story, but for other stories he has done. Tyler, before we start off, though, just tell everybody a little bit about Go Long, how you came up with the idea, some of the features you have now, and maybe some of the stuff you might have coming down the pipe.
I appreciate that. Definitely. I mean, you laid it out great. I really am. I've always kind of gravitated toward long form, toward feature writing, profile writing, the deep dives that kind of take you behind the curtain on how a team is run. That's what I did at Bleacher Report, and before that, the Buffalo News, the Milwaukee Journal, Sentinel. And it just felt like after covering football, the NFL for whatever it was, 11, 12 years, it was time to bet on myself and try to create my own site, build it up. If people liked it and they wanted to support it and subscribe and pay for it, great. Hey, if not, that's what makes America great. I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial bone, in me. It's just both of my parents started their own companies. It was probably something I knew I would take a risk on at some point in life. So it felt like the right time with the relationships I've kind of built up around the league to do that. And I really think it coincides with where coverage is going today. It's COVID is obviously a huge reason for it, but we're not in those locker rooms like we used to be. We're not getting to know guys one-on-one in their environment. And I think that the fans who are pouring millions of dollars into this product, and oh, by the way, they're getting a medium soda for their troubles, which, oh my God, they lose out, right? They deserve the information. They deserve the stories. They deserve to know what the hell's going on with their team for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, I just felt I was in a place where, yeah, I can get to know these guys on my own. I've traveled down to Cleveland, drank some whiskey with Wyatt Teller a few weeks ago. Got a story on Laviska Shenault, which is mind blowing. I've been trying to travel around the country and do these profiles, but yeah, definitely do the inner working stories on teams for good or bad. And it just felt like the Giants right now are in a bad place, right? 9 out of the last 10 years, no playoffs, 5 years in a row, 6 wins or less. It's looking like that will be the case this year. And this is 4 years into Dave Gettleman. He's pretty much a dead man walking. So how did it get here? Why did it get here? Is history going to repeat itself? Those are the questions I tried to ask people who've been in the building. Look, yeah, he's fired a lot of people, and they have the ability to speak freely and explain why it got to this point, it felt like the right time to do this two-parter. So no, thanks for the opportunity to be here talking about it. And for your listeners and your viewers, Wednesday was the most successful day I've ever had at Go Long. So it just says a lot about the Giants fan base. It's robust, it's strong, and they want answers, right? I think that's what it comes down to. They deserve more than what they're getting from the Maras. And hopefully it shed a little light. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed, golongtd.com, you can get everything right there. And we're going to stay on this story.
So there's more coming, you're saying?
Well, probably, I think what we'll do is if there's a part 3, when there's a part 3, let's see what happens, right? Like, let's see what they do. Are they going to just make the same mistakes they've done and promote from within, lean on a friendly face? Or will they think outside of the box? Will they find an independent thinker to clean up this mess? I tend to think it's going to be the former, for the Giants fans' sake. I hope I'm wrong, but we're seeing the 70s in a lot of ways repeat themselves right now. So yeah, I think we'll definitely get around to doing some more Giants coverage.
All right, awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the article, and I don't want you to give away the whole house here, but I do want to touch upon the little things.
Definitely.
When you were getting this information, what really shocked you, made you say, "Holy mackerel"? And I'm sure there was a lot, by the way. But what
there
just
was a
really
lot, I would
blew your
say.
mind?
Right. I think how everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And it's rooted in constantly swinging for the fences, I think, with Dave Gettleman. Like, if you're going to take one of the risks that he took, it wouldn't metastasize into what we see today. But to constantly kind of, not just Gettleman, as an organization, everybody, to go all in on a running back at number 2 overall, to believe in Eli Manning 2 or 3 years beyond the expiration date, to take a quarterback 6th overall who, hey, hook, line, and sinker on Daniel Jones. You can go back. I loved this guy. In retrospect, injuries, turnovers, he can't get past these things. And at the time, it was a huge risk. And they fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl. What? Like, full bloom love at the Senior Bowl? Most teams are out of there by game day. It's such a minuscule part of the evaluation process. So that was a wow moment. And then, Joe Judge, I think the verdict's out. We'll see. I think there's a lot to like. He got the team to fight last year, not so much this year, but that was an outside of the box hire. It just seems kind of like all these major decisions that you're making as a franchise, it's all kind of out of left field. And when you do that, those stars better align. And if they align, you're going to win a Super Bowl. And instead, it just looks like a bunch of mistakes right now, right? DeAndre Baker, to give you a story, it's all at Go Long. And that might be the most interesting one, really, where you've got your area scout, Marcus Cooper, who's still there. I was told he warned everybody about DeAndre Baker, like his position coach, the people who ran the training facility that he was at before the draft. They all are telling him, like, this guy's not showing up. This guy has a very questionable work ethic. The scouts calling him on FaceTime. He's not even answering a lot of the time. And they had this debate, went back and forth. But Pat Shurmur really wanted him, and Dave Gettleman caved, and they drafted him, and it was a disaster, right? So I just think, at some point as an organization, you've got to look in the mirror and be like, hey, Gettleman was a friendly face. Chris Mars at the top of that personnel chart, right on the team website. I get it. Family franchise. That can be a lot of good in a lot of ways. Let's get somebody from the outside in. And that was my takeaway. I think, especially when you look at how other teams are run, you've got to find that voice and you've got to trust that voice. And they don't.
All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, Stat Hero is the first of its kind daily fantasy sports platform where it's you versus the house in head-to-head fantasy matchups. Winner take all. And here's the crazy part. Stat Hero shows you their lineups before you play as you handpick the lineup that you want to face one-on-one. Sign up today for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon, or use our promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. Terms and conditions apply. stathero.com/lockedon. When you look at the evidence that was given to you, you know, it almost, I don't want to say Dave Gettleman was a rubber stamper of moves, but that's kind of the impression I've always gotten. It's like, okay, he and the coaching staff work collaboratively. And Dave was always, he once said something to the effect of, at the end of the day, my biggest concern is, did I get the coaches what they need? Do you think that maybe he gravitated away from principles he might have agreed with, when he was, say, with Carolina? Did he change, do you think, when he came back to the Giants?
There's a really interesting story. I believe I linked it at some point in the series where Dave Gettleman is at the Super Bowl, and at Super Bowl week, Denver, Carolina, 2015. The access was amazing, right? You can talk to all these players, all these coaches, all these GMs, and he took a lot of pride in the fact that when he arrived in Carolina, he didn't just fire anybody. Like, he wanted to give everybody a chance and really see what they do best. And that was something that clearly has changed. I mean, he came into New York and instantly wanted to wipe the scouts' memory. Like, everything that they had done in the past with the way that they wrote their reports are more so a story with, positives and negatives kind of intertwined. And you really got an organic view of what made that prospect good or bad with that kind of approach as a scout. That was out. Then it was just positives, negatives, cookie cutter. And even the way that they would kind of rank prospects, that completely changed. I mean, we got that in the story. And then 7 scouts get canned, 2 of which pretty unceremoniously fly them out to the combine, and then you just let them go. Like, they're going to the weigh-ins. You have a team dinner, and then the next day, boom, see ya. It doesn't sound like somebody who said back at the Super Bowl, when I fire somebody, I'm also firing their families. I think that he was a little crass, and there's a way to go about it, and I don't think he went about it the right way. And by the way, everything he kind of implemented, if this is a results business, it hasn't worked out. I mean, you've got a body of work now, 4 years, to suggest that whatever was put in, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. So to me, you've got to reset completely. I don't know how you hang on to certain aspects of what was put in. And they'll try to gracefully, nudge him out the door, and he'll retire and go off into the sunset. And I'm sure they'll find a way to spin it and say, oh, he did something to the organization, the football department, that needed to be done. Where are the results? I mean, we're not seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is um, with the changes, and I don't know the full extent of the changes, and the costs involved, but I got to imagine that there's some money involved, and to go and change things over, especially given where the NFL is right now. They're coming off of the pandemic year. We're still in the pandemic, obviously, but the salary cap hasn't quite kicked up the way I think they anticipated last year. The cap went down. So, these are all decisions I think that have to factor into the equation, wouldn't you say?
With how they've allotted the money. Leonard Williams is a beast. I like Leonard Williams, and he's playing through a really bad injury right now. I think it's his triceps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To me, that's money well spent. Like, that's a dude that is he got his money and he's still busting his butt. Like, outside of that, man, I mean, was it Patrick Olame? They basically just give away $5.5 million for 7 games. You can go right down the list. Kenny Galladay, he was hurt in Detroit. He's been hurt in New York, and 4 years, $72 million. That's the player that you want to take Daniel Jones to the next level. Adoree Jackson was told Tennessee couldn't wait for him to leave. He's just kind of been a guy. He's not getting paid to be kind of a guy. They've financially made a lot of mistakes, and Nate Solder once upon a time. It's hard to move past those mistakes, and even it's hard to move past those mistakes, but like, in theory, they did the right thing. You've got a quarterback on a rookie deal. Go spend, take advantage of this window. The Patriots are doing it better than anybody right now. I mean, Bill Belichick kind of zagged where everybody else zigged all offseason. Everybody's obsessed with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, all these quarterbacks on the move. And Belichick said, all right, I'm going to go just get a cheap Mac Jones. I'm going to spend, $1 zillion on all these free agents. I love that approach. And the Giants kind of did the same thing. The only thing is the Patriots found all the right players. The Giants found all the wrong players. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how that's not an indictment on your front office, on Gettleman, on whoever's in charge. And You do need to find somebody else new. And I know Kevin Abrams has had a lot to say with that salary cap. From what I was told, you probably know more than me on his role and what he does. I've been told that, a very good person, which would be an upgrade, I would think. But he's also been there for 23 years and he's a trusted face. And maybe he could turn it around, but it just strikes as a situation where you need somebody that isn't tied to what's happened this last decade.
That would make sense for sure. Now, I've got to ask you this, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I know a lot of people have asked me about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put it to you. When they
Yeah.
read a story like this, they say right off the bat, those who still support Gettleman and the organization, they say, "Oh, he talked to disgruntled employees or ex-employees. How good is the information? Are these people that had access to grind?" Did you feel at any point when you were speaking to these people that that might have been the case, or did can you just take us a little bit into, how you verified information and it wasn't just a case of, Johnny Smith just absolutely hates Gettleman because he got fired by him. You know what I mean?
I get it too. Look, I totally get that criticism. I don't think that these kind of voices should be dismissed though. Like these are people that saw the wreckage firsthand. They're not employed by NFL teams. And by the way, I think that if people are making assumptions, I'm sure the Giants are making assumptions themselves on who I spoke with. I would just say that those assumptions are wrong in terms of the sourcing for this story. A lot went into it, but I'll just say that in terms of people who were let go, yeah, they're pissed off. They want to have jobs. You take that in consideration, but also they're just giving everybody the play-by-play of what happened, right? I mean, there's some opinion in there and when it comes to their interpersonal dealings with Gettleman, but like they're just explaining pick to pick, draft to draft. Here's what went down, and it's not disputable. So I definitely get that. And look, David Gettleman had a chance to speak. Hey, if he wants to hop on and do an interview with Go Long, the door's always open. The phone's always open. Reached out to the team, was not made available. Fine. Okay. I get it. But look, I think that there's a value to anonymous sources. I really do. And this is a whole other debate. It's had all the time, right? I think it comes down to the reader, the news consumer, trusting who they're reading. You can choose to trust who you're reading or not. It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to think. But I think I'll stand by my body of work covering this game and the fact that I can make that judgment call. Like I'm talking to these people and I can kind of wade through the access to grind. And at the end of the day, the fans deserve the truth. The fans are the ones that make this possible. And the fans don't deserve to be jerked around every other direction and told and have facts spun at a mic at a Zoom press conference that have been through, PR messaging. And that's what a lot of teams, not just the Giants, that's what a lot of teams are kind of doing. It does give them an opportunity with these locker rooms closed to really project the message that they want to project. Here's what's happening here. Listen to us from this pulpit. At Go Long, I want to take that pulpit and say, no, here's what really happened. Here's the people who saw it. And they're just being honest. They're just being truthful. They just want people to know what they saw up close day to day. If that's for you, hey, love to have you on board. Subscribe, because I'm not stopping. We're going to do more of these type of stories to learn what really happens behind the curtain. If you'd rather just take what is said at the podium and the mic verbatim and gospel, by all means. That's how I'd answer that, I guess.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough. I mean, we could put the information out, and it goes for any of us. Put the information out there to the best of our ability, and and let people draw their own conclusions. They all have minds, absolutely.
Totally.
All right. So here's the thing. Now we kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier, but I want to get into it just a little bit more with you, if I could. The Giants, for the last decade, most of the last decade, you got to, I guess, 2016, although I think that was a mirage, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But can they recover from this? And, a question I get a lot from Giant fans is, how soon can they recover from it? And, I know it's contingent on what do they do after the season? Where do they go from here? And there's concern now that, okay, John Mara and Steve Tisch love Joe Judge. They don't want to give up on him. So now right off the bat, you might be hamstringing yourself as far as what GM you bring in here, assuming you do move on from Gettleman or he retires. I mean, so can they recover from this? What do they need to do? You mentioned going outside. What else do they need to do? Start from scratch, blow it all up, or what?
I'm John Mara, right? It starts with that decision on Joe Judge. Okay, so Gettleman's a dead man walking. He's done. They're moving on from him. And so you need the coach and the GM aligned. And if they're not aligned, you're doomed from the start. So I think it starts with the decision on Joe Judge. Like, do you believe in his vision? Do you believe he's the right head coach? Do you believe he should have that final say and kind of be the judge, jury, executioner in your building? They do need somebody with a voice where it stops with that person. If I learned anything on these last 4 years, it was a lot of back and forth. Like, if you need somebody that has that final say. Ted Thompson in Green Bay covering him, it wasn't perfect, but you knew it ended with him, and he had that final say. He was the decider on draft day. So they need that person. Is that person Joe Judge? We only hear good things from John Mara, that he loves him, right? So I would be shocked if they moved on from Joe Judge. What do I think about that? I don't know. I'm not there every day. I did a story with Logan Ryan a year ago, and when things were good in New York and how they kind of turned things around, and it sounded like he had that team fighting. You don't really see that fight this year. You don't see what you see in Baltimore when they're down to their backup quarterback and they're decimated at every position, taking Green Bay to the wire. You don't see it in Pittsburgh where they're trotting out Ben Roethlisberger at his age and finding a way to dig out a 29-0 holes on the road to almost beat Minnesota. You don't see that fight. I think that's an indictment on coaching. Now they've got to make that call. I do think that, all right, so let's not hold our breath for that to happen, right? So even if we thought they should just reset in every way, which is what they probably should do, they're probably going to give Joe Judge that control. You do need to get him aligned with a smart general manager, somebody who's scouted, somebody who's been at these games, somebody who is just lives, eats, sleeps, breathes football, and not necessarily metrics and analytics and salary cap stuff. I think that person's out there somewhere. Could it be a Glenn Cook in Cleveland? I hear great things about him. An Elliott Wolf in New England. He was a part of that Packer system for a number of years. There's a lot of different candidates, I think, out there where if you really did want to fix this thing, you go find that person. You make it happen.
All right, Giant fans, we've got more coming up on today's show. But first, we know it. The Giants aren't going to be in the Super Bowl this year. But you know what? There's no reason that you can't be. And you can be there at Super Bowl 56 at Los Angeles SoFi Stadium with On Location, which is the official hospitality partner of the NFL. On Location allows you to select your exact seats and customize your elite experience, which includes an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star Los Angeles hotels, and foods prepared by the legendary chef Wolfgang Puck. Visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information, or search Super Bowl On Location. The Super Bowl will be here before you know it, and if you want to be there, get there with On Location. Again, that's onlocationexp.com/SB56. All right, Giant fans, still more to come on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, it's the most wonderful time of the year as college football gears up for the bowl season. The NFL season is coming to a close when the playoffs are taking shape, and the NBA and NHL are in full swing. And no matter what sport you follow, BetOnline has you covered all holiday season long with more props, more odds, and more lines than ever before. Head on over to their new and updated desktop or mobile website at betonline.ag and sign up today for an account. And when you use our special promo code LOCKEDON, you will get a 50% welcome bonus. Again, that's promo code Locked On. So don't wait. Take advantage of all the amazing offers that BetOnline has today. Visit betonline.ag and get your 50% welcome bonus with the code Locked On. One pivot moment for me, for the Giants in this decade, was when Tom Coughlin left. And I was kind of surprised, and you alluded to this in your story, that the Giants hung on to Eli Manning maybe a little past his quote unquote expiration date. I was surprised that when Coughlin left, they didn't sweep out Jerry Reese at the time and Eli Manning. I thought that was a big mistake because ideally there's something to be said for having the GM, the head coach, and the franchise quarterback all on the same timeline. Would you, and looking back and with the research you did and whatnot, would you say that was maybe the pivotal moment for when things really started to slide downhill?
No doubt about it. Right. I mean, you have Ben McAdoo on staff as an offensive coordinator for 2 years, and you're just constantly convincing yourself that Eli has something left, that this is the guy that's going to get the best out of Eli. This is the guy. And I covered Ben McAdoo in Green Bay when he was a quarterback's coach. Seems like a very, very diligent, hard worker. There's a lot of good there, but that scheme is very basic, elementary. I mean, I'm not telling fans anything they don't know. You saw it. There's no misdirection. There's no confusion, no unpredictability. It was, here's the play. Here's where Odell's running his route. And the defense is basically calling it out before the snap. That's what it was. It's very matchup based, where you're hoping that you just win those one-on-ones. And you have to have a coach that has a little innovation, but for whatever reason, they convinced themselves that those 2 years where he was the coordinator, that there was a lot of good in Eli. Like, say what you want. I've been told even by people who have left that Eli had something left. That 6-10 team in 2015 actually was really good offensively, and even before that there was a lot to like. You can talk yourself into anything, but at the end of the day, I think that there were a lot of hollow stats. There was a lot of scramble mode situations late in the fourth quarter where those numbers are probably looking a little better than they should have. And I agree with you that at some point as an owner, you have to make that tough decision to just cut ties with everybody and move on. Right. Or hey, maybe no, Jerry Reese does not like to talk to the media from what I've been told, but I would love to know what he really thought about Eli Manning at that juncture. I wouldn't be surprised if, as the general manager, he was ready to move on and the ownership was not ready to move on, which is a whole other element to this.
And Mark Ross, I know, has come out and, he didn't he term the phrase, what was it, E-hive, I think it was?
I don't know. Is that what he said?
Something like that. I think it was something like that. I know, has been a little bit more open with his feelings.
And he's right there too. I mean, he was with Jerry Reese. So
yeah, he was like Reese's right-hand man. So, all right. So a couple more and then I'll let you go. When you look at the franchise today, the defense, not horrible. Joe Judge, jury is still out on him, as you said, but I think a lot more to like than not to like. So
sure.
You're not looking at a franchise that right now, I mean, despite the record, and I get it, at the end of the day, the one-loss record is what counts, but it's not like, and I hate to bring other teams into it. It's not like a Jacksonville where there's like absolutely, no coaching, no, what do we do now? We're going to have to restart all over again.
Joe Judge isn't grinding up on college women at a bar instead of going home with his team. He's not doing that stuff like Irvin.
No, thank gosh. Joe's a good guy, by the way. But anyway, my point is, there are some salvageable pieces, I think, right now to this team. Some of the draft picks they brought in, so it's not, to me, it's not a total, let's blow it up and let's start from scratch all over again. Would you agree? Do your sources agree that they can salvage this if they're smart about where they go from here?
Find that independent thinker, that football person that's going to make football decisions. I think that's huge. And then the next step is, like you just said, Patricia, it's finding who deserves to stay on the ship, right? Like who fits into the plan long-term. Leonard Williams, he better fit into the plan. You paid him a lot of money, but I think that's a dude you want to build around there. A Logan Ryan, he's just an unbelievable football character, leader. He seems like a guy you'd want in a building one way or another. But offensively, you've got some tough decisions to make, right? I mean, Saquon, unbelievably talented. I think you want him on your team at this point. Like, you made that bed. You just hope he can somehow stay healthy, maybe another year removed from that reconstructive knee surgery. That helps. He's a piece and a person that you want in the building. But what do you do at quarterback? I mean, it always comes back to quarterback. And I think that in the past, they kind of hung on to people that wanted to hang on to Eli Manning. It sounds like Joe Judge believes in Daniel Jones. Is Joe Judge going to have that final say with whoever comes in as that GM or that football mind? Because you want them aligned. Everybody has to kind of be on the same page when it comes to the quarterback position. God, I vacillate on Daniel Jones probably more than any other player in the league. There's a lot to like. God, the fastest time, right, for any quarterback, the best deep ball last year. He's got these traits, but he hasn't stayed healthy. The turnovers are still a problem. It's a tough decision to make. It seems like you have to start over at quarterback again, or at least bring in somebody, make a push for somebody in the offseason. I'll throw a name out there, Russell Wilson. I wouldn't be surprised if they took a run at Russell Wilson, and then Russell Wilson would want to go to New York. I mean, Park Avenue is right there. He's tight with the commissioner. Him and his wife are tight with the commissioner. I think that Goodell really sees him as an ambassador for the game. Does that fix everything? I don't know. I mean, where he's at in his life and career, but I do think that you have to really make some hard decisions at the most important position in sports.
Got to fix the offensive line first and foremost.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I mean, that was a problem with Jerry Reese. It was a problem for Dave Gettleman. I mean, he came in day one. He wanted to play big boy football, and it hasn't gotten better at all. So, no, you're right. And I do think, like, in terms of who should stay, who should go, Andrew Thomas has had a good year from what I can tell. Like, he's turned it around. So, would you rather have Tristan Wirfs? Probably. He's probably the best right tackle in football, but at least there's a little hope there when it didn't seem like there was going to be any hope as a rookie.
Yeah, definitely. So bottom line is the Giants have a cap situation next year that is not very attractive. They're going to have to cut guys. I think there's, according to Over the Cap, I want to say they're about $9 million in the red once the top 51 hits, which is not good. That means they're going to have to cut some big contracts, some tough decisions that are going to have to be made. And, do they stay in-house? I know there was that report, like you had mentioned, that Kevin Abrams is maybe the guy they're going to look at. I'm not so sure I would endorse that move. I mean, it's not my call, obviously, but I am in favor of going outside, casting a wider net, and looking at some of these winning teams, getting somebody from Baltimore, Cleveland, as you mentioned, Indianapolis, some of these teams that have had success and are forward thinkers. And, but there's something also to be said, and I understand this from the Mara's perspective about being comfortable with what you know. But sometimes, you just got to branch out, because if you don't, you never know what you're going to have. And they did that. The last time they did that, if you think about it, was when they hired George Young. That's the last time they really went outside the organization. And they have since tried to milk that GM tree, if you will. Young hired a Corsi, who was an established GM on his own. Then came Jerry Reese, then came Dave Gettleman. So you've had that whole tree. And sadly, I think that tree might have dried up a little bit.
You just used a word that they probably should be using in those offices. Uncomfortable, right? Are you going to make the comfortable decision, or are you going to make the uncomfortable decision? They have to have more of those uncomfortable conversations to turn this thing around, right? You need to bring in somebody who disagrees with you.
Yeah.
You got to have those robust debates, those robust conversations, that back and forth where you're not seeing eye to eye. You need to embrace that if you're the New York Giants. It's not the worst thing in the world to bring it back to 79, right? I mean, there's a lot of similarities. I agree.
For sure. All right.
Granted, I wasn't born until 87, but from what I've been told.
Really? You were only born to 87. Wow, you're a youngster.
Yeah, don't let this bald head fool you, right? 34 years old.
Gosh, you just made me feel old, because I was out of high school in 87. It was my first year of college. Wow. Anyway, Tyler, great chatting with you. Before we say goodbye, please tell everybody where they can find Go Long, what kind of subscriptions you've got, what you've got coming up that might be of interest to not just Giant fans, but to football fans in general.
No doubt about it, Patricia. And thanks again for having me on. It's great to connect with the fans on this podcast, which is an amazing audience that you've built up. GoLongTD.com, and we've got free and pay options. So if you sign up for the free newsletter, you do get an article here and there the podcast, that kind of stuff. But when you become a paid subscriber at $8 a month or $50 a year, you get everything, all the profiles, all the features, all the deep dives. We have a pretty big Packers following from my Packers days. So Bob McGandy's in the Hall of Fame as a sports writer. We work together at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. So we actually do a show every week as well to give, those Packer fans. I don't know if you have any Packer fans listening, but that's a fun time as well. But yeah, definitely the whole ethos of what I'm trying to do. It's NFL long form. Find a story that goes beyond that press conference. And absolutely, I think we'll be coming back to these Giants. I think we have to. I don't think the story's done yet.
Ooh, now you got me intrigued as to what you got up your sleeve. Good thing I signed up, right?
Hey, thank you. I can't emphasize enough. I mean, thank you to everybody listening who has. It's blown me away. It's just unbelievable the support that's come in for people. I know they want to read this 2-part series. I can promise you, stick around. We'll have a lot more down the pipe.
Anyway, Ty, appreciate your time. I appreciate the work you do, your friendship, everything. This was great catching up with you. Folks, be sure to check him out. Again, I will have the information in the show notes if you want to check him out. And highly recommend giving all his stuff a look-see. The Logan Ryan piece, by the way, I remember that. That was fantastic. And can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks so much for the kind words. And it's great to reconnect like this anytime. Let's do it again soon.
You got it, my friend. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for us on this special edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We have Mark Schofield talking quarterbacks. Everything you want to know about the Giant quarterbacks, Mark and I covered. I can't wait to share that one with you. For Tyler Dunne, I am Patricia Traina. Thank you for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Take care, folks.